This is a Flying Cow production. Well, hello and welcome back to the Great Film Challenge. My name is Clay Johnson, the Flying Cow himself, and of course, as always, I have here with me not my nephew, Aaron. Aaron, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing all right. So, here we are, back to the main feed. I will say I hope you guys enjoyed our little bonus side podcast that we put out earlier this week. But here we are with back on the main list, doing the next film on our list, which was the 2016 film Moonlight, which was directed by Barry Jenkins. And let's see, it stars Trevante Rhodes, Andre Holland, Janelle Monáe, Mahershala Ali, Naomi Harris, and many, many more. I will say I had seen this film previously. I saw it the year it came out. At that time, I was watching as many of the Best Picture films as I could. Yeah. I don't do that so much anymore just because I don't know, sometimes it can be exhausting. Just trying to keep up with all that stuff. But this was definitely during that time when I was watching, all of the Best Picture nominees if I could. I will say when I first watched this film, I liked it, but it didn't really connect to me as much as maybe some of the others that were on that list.
Yeah.
But at the same time, when it won Best Picture, I wasn't upset. Like I felt like it was a good film and did deserve it, especially for, some of the reasons that we'll talk about later. But you had never seen this film, right?
No.
Had you heard of it before?
No.
No.
I had nothing at all relating to this movie.
No. So I tell you, we're watching a film called Moonlight, and you're like, okay, it's about the moon.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
That's why I like to ask what they're about if I don't know anything.
Sure.
Because some of these are like, I've heard the name just because of how big they are, of course.
Right.
Okay, at least some of these are on the list that I haven't seen that are big enough to have the name be around.
Sure.
Outside of like foreign movies, maybe.
Yeah.
But that's why I like to ask. That way I can figure something out.
Right. Like, you haven't seen Titanic yet. But if I tell you we're watching Titanic, you know what that's about.
Yeah. Wait, is that on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Did you?
No,
I mean, we can talk about Titanic when we get to Titanic.
We can talk about Titanic when we get there.
But
that's a movie.
But my point is that you know what to expect from a title like that.
Yeah.
Whereas Moonlight, that doesn't really tell you much about what the film is about. Although I do think that it's a fitting title.
I do too.
Based on some things that are within the film. But yeah, like I said, you have no clue what it is about. I mean, you probably had some idea considering the fact that we're doing this for Pride Month.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for anybody else out there that is in the same boat that Aaron was, that has no clue what this film is, it is basically about a young black boy who is, let's see, his name is Sharon, or Chiron. Chiron. Okay. So he's growing up in I believe like Miami
Yeah,
area.
it was like Florida or something.
Yeah. And basically, it's just about him growing up, in, difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
It is, an image of the Black experience. But it's not just the Black experience, it is the Black queer experience,
Yes.
because he realizes, early on that there's something different about him.
Yeah.
Actually, people around him realize it before he does, unfortunately, to negative effect. But yeah, it's just kind of how he lives his life and kind of copes with, the different things that he has to cope with. And it's really just kind of a slice of his life. Very much, a character piece. It takes place in 3 different chapters. One from when he's a little boy. I would say between 8 to 11.
I was gonna say he looked fairly young. I couldn't really tell for sure.
Sure,
But, like,
yeah.
about that age.
I mean, you asked me at one point how old I thought he was, and I said about 10. I don't know. I don't remember if they ever said how old he was. I will say there's nothing, mentioned in anything that I'm finding online specifically. But yeah, looks about that age. And then another one from when he's a teenager, I would say about 15, 16.
Yeah.
And then when he is an adult, now living on his own, I would say probably mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
Maybe early 20s, but probably more mid to late. But and we just kind of see how he progresses and the decisions that he makes, and different things like that. So having now discussed what the film is, what were your thoughts on this film?
Towards the end of it, it was kind of another one where I wasn't really entirely sure what to think of or take from it.
Sure.
Until we talked about it a bit more.
Right.
Which to me made a bit more sense.
Sure. I will say this movie is very heavily conversational.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, we had a situation where it got a little noisy. And it was a little harder to hear, and unfortunately we didn't have the option of closed captioning. So we weren't able to do that, but I was able to answer the questions that you had, for the most part. I will say, like I said, I had previously seen this and I didn't connect. I think part of it was that I was watching other Oscar winners, and just in comparison, there were just some that I connected to a little bit more.
Yeah.
But again, thought it was a great film, thought it was deserving of the accolades that it got. But it just didn't connect to me as well. I got a lot more from it on this watch. So it might just be one of those things that just kind of needs some time to sink in. But I will say, for me, one of my favorite things, especially on this rewatch, was Mahershala Ali's performance. He played the guy who's becomes kind of his surrogate father in the first chapter.
I really liked that.
What made it so complicated, though, is that he's being raised by his mother as a single parent. But she is. It takes you a while to realize it, because the first time you see her, it just looks like she works hard.
Yeah.
But then the more time you spend with her, it becomes very apparent that she has a drug problem.
Yeah.
And to make things even more complicated, the surrogate father Juan, played by Mahershala Ali,
Uh-huh.
is a drug dealer, and he just happens to be one of the ones who his mother gets her drugs from.
Yeah.
And I mean, that leads to a terrific scene.
It does.
At the end of that chapter, where basically, I mean, a lot of hard conversations happen in that scene.
Yes.
Because, something that I mentioned earlier is that, we see pretty much the first thing we see from him, of him at the beginning of the film is that he is heavily bullied.
Yeah.
And he really doesn't get why. Come to find out, the other kids, without really any basis, assume that he is gay.
Yes.
Which,
they don't even care. They're just
at the
immediately
age
at
that
him.
he is, he doesn't even know.
Yeah.
But they know that he is different. He acts. I mean, even his mother apparently assumes it.
Yeah.
Because, that's one of the things that she confronts Mahershala Ali's character about is she knows that's why he's getting picked on.
Yeah.
Because I guess just the way that he carries himself, people assume that he is gay.
Yeah.
And so, that's one of the things that happens in that scene. He asks about a slur that he's been called.
Yeah.
And I will say, I really like the way that Juan handles that.
I do too.
Because he says, well, that's a thing that people say to make gay people feel bad.
Yeah.
I think that is a way to answer it and at the same time condemn that language. You could have also said that's, somebody who is gay or something like that, which it's like, no, we don't want those things to be synonymous, because that's not what he is. That is a slur.
Yeah.
And, so like I said, it's at that point that he's just like, how do I know if I am that? Because he's like, I don't know why they're calling me this.
Yep.
All I know is that I'm different and they're mad at me for being different. And he doesn't at that point even know what makes him different yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of goes to kind of the societal homophobia.
Yeah.
Kind of inherent there, that he's automatically made fun of before he even knows what is going on. So, it's some really messed up shit.
Yeah.
It's really hard to put it any other way. Yeah. And it's also in that conversation that he kind of already knows that he's a drug dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And just kind of, he's like, are you a drug dealer? My mom's on drugs. Do you sell her drugs? And it's just like, that's tough, and you can tell. I mean, even before that, we have seen him struggling with that, because he catches her, basically, doing sexual favors in exchange for drugs and things like that. And, he ends up having to deal with that through the majority of the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
But, then we move forward into his, teenager years, and he's dealing with more stuff. He's starting to realize things. He makes a connection with another boy, and it seems really good. But then that boy is pressured to, because he doesn't want to be. I mean, I would say the character of Kevin, I would say is probably more bi, but at the same time, he is open to those things. So if he were found out, he would also be persecuted. And so he gives into that peer pressure and beats him up, beats Sharon up. And, you know, it's heartbreaking that happens.
Yeah.
But then, you know, Chiron retaliates against the kid that basically has been leading the bullying the whole time. And he gets sent off to, you know, juvenile detention or whatever.
Yeah.
One way or another, he ends up in Atlanta. He ends up selling drugs up there, you know, all this kind of stuff. And then he ends up reconnecting, number one, with his mom, because she, you know, this is, you know, at least 10 years later. We don't know the exact time lapse. But she is working on getting herself clean. In fact, apparently, in an effort to remain clean, she's staying at the rehab to help others that are, you know, coming in. But she is 100% honest about she's also afraid of just relapsing herself.
Yeah.
So she stays in an environment where she knows she's, you know, safe.
Yes.
Which, you know, it's a tough decision to make, but, you know, you do what you have to. But then he also reconnects with the kid, Kevin. And it's at that point that he kind of starts to, you know, start toward, you know, self-acceptance. And, you know, we talked about how at the end of the movie, you know, he basically is just there with Kevin, you know, in an embrace kind of thing. We don't really know what's going to be going on with, you know, his career or anything like that. Because like we said, he's a drug dealer at this point, but he has started on the road to self-acceptance, which is, you know, part of fixing everything else. It's the best first step to changing the rest of his life. But I really liked this movie. you're looking off in the distance.
Looking back at it on the poster.
Yeah.
It was good.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't say I connected with it.
Sure.
I did really like a lot of the stuff from the first part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I also liked how it was just split into parts or chapters or whatever you want to say.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. The construction of it, you know, the artfulness of it is an easy thing to appreciate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really loved the characters and the sort of structure that they provided of Juan and Teresa.
Mm-hmm.
That was really nice.
Yeah, we really haven't even talked about Teresa, who is played by Janelle Monáe, who I believe, number one, this film was apparently her feature film debut.
Oh, cool.
Because she's, I think Janelle Monáe identifies as non-binary, but I think she is open to female pronouns.
Oh.
So I caught myself for a second, but I'm actually pretty sure about that. But Janelle Monáe is a music artist.
Oh, cool.
You know, has done things like that, but I'm pretty sure that the same year she was also in Hidden Figures.
Okay,
or maybe it was the following year. But very, very close to each other, that's for sure. But yeah, she's in both of those. I will say I really like her as Teresa in this film. You know, definitely was a stable, like, mother figure for him, because unfortunately his own mother was not. And we didn't even talk about it, but it is revealed while he's still a teenager in the second act. Like Juan is only in that first act. because apparently between then and when the second act starts, he has passed.
Yeah.
We don't know the surrounding circumstances. I can only assume that it was probably violence related.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Either, I mean, it's possible it was self-inflicted, considering, all of, the guilt he may have developed, but it also could have just been related to his trade.
Yeah. I feel like it's probably more so that, but
yeah,
but they don't say anything. So.
no, they're not really explicit about that. But yeah, she is a positive influence in his life. And while she doesn't actually appear in the third segment, she is asked about, and he says that he's still in contact with her. I would have liked to see her in that third segment, just because, she probably isn't super, happy with the idea that he's gone down the same road that Juan did. But it would have been nice to see her as part of his life at that point. Yeah, is there anything else about this film that you wanted to talk about?
I can't really think of anything. Not a lot stuck out to me. I like it.
You sure?
I like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I liked what they did and how they displayed everything.
Sure.
But nothing super like special or anything like came to me.
Sure. I mean, I will say sometimes with films like this, you might connect to it again, like with some years down the line and another revisit, or you might just never connect to it.
Yeah.
And either one is fine. You do acknowledge, the quality of it and, the positivity of the message.
Yes.
It just might not connect with you personally. And that's fine.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, let us go ahead and let people know how they can get into contact with us. So, of course, you can contact us on all of our socials at the Flying Cow Pod. Make sure to check out everything that we've got going on over there. You can also email at theflyingcowpod@gmail.com. And yeah, just check in with all of our stuff. And Aaron, I believe we have a revisit that we're about to get to. We have decided to go ahead. So this was originally going to be our 20th film.
Yeah.
But instead we kicked it down the road, and it will now be our 25th film.
Yay.
When we finish this one, we will be a quarter of the way through the list. But we are going to be finally talking next week about the life of Brian, Monty Python's Life of Brian. So make sure to check in with that one. See if it was worth the wait. But until that time, moo.